Now then, you're very welcome back. So before we go any further with the show, there is a point I really want to make here. I made it in December, and in light of the Athletic piece on Vera Pauw yesterday, I think it bears repeating more strongly, and it is a point I feel very strongly about. I'm not really in the habit of doing this, but I think the FAI need to be held to account here. So, in my opinion, the FAI's handling of the Vera Pauw controversy is unacceptable. Completely, utterly unacceptable. The FAI, I think you'll agree, has a duty of care to the players, and from what I can see, they are not upholding their duty, and they haven't upheld their duty over the last number of months. Now, I should say, this is not an attack on Vera Pauw. But as you know, last December, the American National Women's Soccer League published a report into an array of issues in US coaching. Some of those issues were as serious as being criminal, and some were about improper conduct as applied to Pauw. So in that report and in yesterday's article in The Athletic, what we have are players and coaches saying one thing about what happened, and we have Vera Pauw saying completely the opposite. There is zero common ground, and it makes for a very frustrating read. How are any of us to know the truth? None of us were in Houston. But let's recount the timeline here, because I think that gets to the nub of this issue. Back in December, the very night that report was published, within a couple of hours, the FAI released a statement of support. And so that very night, Roy Barrett, in a press conference, was asked about the report, understandably. Here's what he said. The reality is that Vera has denied the allegations, and the report does not make any comment one way or the other. They just state the allegations from anonymous people. Vera's refuted them, and they move on. Vera denies it, and I have no reason to disbelieve that. Now, in the Athletic piece yesterday, Vera Pauw gives her version of the FAI's handling of that report back in December. So the FAI asked her about the allegations, and according to Pauw, quote, I responded and they looked me in the eyes and they saw what it did to me because I'm so different. So it's double standards. If I would have been a male, this would never ever have been an issue. Now, I'm sorry, Roy Barrett saying we asked her, she denied, a case closed, or Pauw's they looked me in the eye and case closed, is just not good enough. It's nowhere near good enough. And that is not how the FAI should have handled this report. Vera Pauw said at the time as well, you might remember, she asked 𝐒𝐇𝐈𝐒𝐃 if there were issues, and 𝐒𝐇𝐈𝐒𝐃 said no. Again, that is not how you check things thoroughly as an association. And on Roy Barrett saying that the authors of the report just simply quoted people anonymously and didn't make a finding either way of guilt, there is some truth in that, but it is worth stating, in that report, the authors, who are serious people, they make the point they didn't name coaches lightly. They make a strong point of saying that, and they listed out the criteria for naming people, and they felt confident it was correct to include Vera Pauw. So Roy Barrett's comments in December really do omit that point. It wasn't just a case of we took anonymous voices and we threw everything into the report. Let me say something on Vera Pauw. She is entitled to coach any way she wants. She can control diets, weights routines, running routines, but the point here is that several players and coaches are saying it was inappropriate in its intensity. It was wrong. Now, should we not take that seriously is the question. Is the FAI stance, and I sort of asked this semi-seriously, is their stance that all of the other players in that report, talking about all of the other coaches, are telling the truth, but the Vera Pauw section, they're lying? Is that their understanding of this report? Is that what they're reading into this report? People understandably feel Pep Guardiola talks about weight. Vera Pauw has made that point. I get that. I totally get that. And some of the stuff in the report is innocuous, in my opinion. I appreciate that. There is a player in The Athletic complaining about Pauw entering the dressing room when players are changing. And Pauw, by the way, denies doing that she would always announce herself, is what she says. But several players told her, Vera, you're a woman, you don't have to announce yourself, just come on in. And to me, that rings totally true. And what's more, the complaint in the first place seems a little OTT. So I accept some of the stuff in terms of the complaints doesn't jump out as being very serious. At the same time, the Athletic piece also says, in one instance, and I quote, several witnesses, both staff and players, say they saw Pauw grab a staffer around the neck or collarbone area and shove her at halftime of an away game early in the season. Clearly that's more serious. Now, Pauw denies that. Pauw said 2 players were, quote, verbally exploding. A staff member was going to intervene, and she says, I stopped her. I said, stop, sit down, calm down, everybody. That's my job. I never pulled the collar. I never put a hand on the shoulder. Could be. It's absolutely untrue to say it in this way. Now, here's the thing. I don't know the truth. But here's the point. Neither does the FAI. And they should know the truth. On the back of the Athletic piece, again, an FAI statement of support straight away in the last couple of days. The FAI said it remains fully focused on supporting Vera and the women's team as they continue their preparation for their first World Cup in Australia, and we won't be making any further comment on this article. This is crazy. This is not how this situation should be handled. What should have happened in December and what should happen now is very simple. And it's not a short statement with no follow-up questions. It's not a chat with a player or two. And it's not Vera Pauw having a chat, for sure, with the player. It should be an independent person, not an FAI employee, face-to-face conversation with every player who's played under Pauw, completely confidential, and just a very simple, tell us your experience. Is everything okay? Completely confidential. And then compile a report, presented to the FAI, presented to the Irish people, and ideally then the report says, we've talked to the players, we are absolutely certain everything is A-OK. Everything has been done here to a standard. And if they did that, I think the Irish public would be totally fine and behind Vera Pauw. Because let me put it this way. If any board member of the FAI had a daughter or a loved one in the Irish team, on the back of this report, the first thing they would do is exactly what all of us would do. They would phone that loved one and say, is everything okay? What's the experience? Talk to me. Now, the FAI has not extended all the players in their care that courtesy. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they did that in the 2-3 hours between the report being published in December and their first statement, but we haven't heard about it. And maybe they've done it since, but I haven't heard anything of that after making some inquiries today. Yesterday, I sent a general interview request to Jonathan Hill. I was told that wouldn't happen until after the World Cup. So today, we emailed the FAI a very simple and direct question. We asked them exactly what they had done when it came to talking to players on a confidential basis. The response to that very simple, very direct question is as follows. Again, have you talked to the players to get all their experiences? The response from the FAI is fully focused on supporting Vera and the women's team as they continue their preparation for their first World Cup in Australia. We will not be making any further comment on this article. I'm sorry, this is not good enough, and I would ask anybody, again, from the FAI to come into this studio and discuss further. I would ask if Vera Pauw has any objection to an independent party talking to all of the players confidentially. Presumably, it would exonerate her, and it would remove this cloud hanging over a World Cup. Now, I understand, again, some people feel that the charges against Pauw are innocuous, but again, the players and coaches felt things were inappropriate, and they were there. And right now, we have to understand, Irish players will do anything to make a World Cup. So can the FAI guarantee that in 5-10 years, we won't be hearing from a young current player who may have had problems in the environment? And again, I come with no knowledge of problems in the environment. That is the problem. None of us have the knowledge we need here. But can the FAI guarantee that? I would say they can't. And the FAI recently made application for millions of taxpayers' money. They have said it's a new FAI, it's an accountable FAI, it's a responsible FAI. I have to say, their handling of this situation, they are not showing that.